What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video. In this one we are discussing the newly released Premier League fixtures for the 2022-23 season. We're going to go through what the big six have, the best fixtures, the worst fixtures, what the opening day of the season is going to look like, and which players we might want to start thinking about. We don't have to lock players in, but we can start talking a little bit about who might be decent if they come in at a good price. If you enjoyed the video, give it a like, hit that subscribe button ahead of the new season, and let's jump into it. Okay, let's take a quick look at game week 1. This is the week that's hopefully going to get us off to a good start for FPL. Obviously, you want to nail that captaincy game week 1. And as always, or it feels like as always, I think it's the last 4 seasons in a row now, Liverpool are kicking off with a newly promoted side. They're playing Fulham. It is away, so maybe not quite as easy as if it was at Anfield. But I think a lot of people are going to be looking at Mo Salah captain, as we have done for the last 4 years, on the opening day of the season. Of course, there are some other big teams as well that we might look at captaincy for. So Haaland for Man City, for example, but unfortunately they're playing West Ham away. So that's going to be a bit more of a difficult fixture, you would imagine, than obviously Liverpool playing against Fulham. We'll look at the rest of the fixtures after game week 1 in a minute, but in terms of captaincy game week 1, that's not looking great. I think the kind of biggest competition for Salah in game week 1 is probably going to be Spurs. So Son and Kane against Southampton at home. They really didn't defend too well last year, and if that carries on into this season, that could be a big result. And obviously we know that Conte is going to have a whole pre-season, some new players in as well. That could really be a nice alternative to Salah. It's going to be very difficult to pick our big premium players at the start of the year this season. Looking at the other kind of newly promoted sides, Bournemouth are kicking off at home to Aston Villa. So Aston Villa get to play Bournemouth in the opening day. And then obviously the other one is going to be Nottingham Forest. I was just trying to find it there on the screen, who are playing Newcastle away. So some okay fixtures for the other newly promoted sides, but for Fulham it's quite difficult. Chelsea against Everton. Obviously Lampard up against Chelsea. That's going to be the narrative. Again, Everton a bit like Southampton. Really poor defence last year. You'd expect them to improve a little bit, but that could be a good game for Chelsea. Whether or not Chelsea will have any players that we want to captain ahead of the likes of Salah, Kane and Son, I'm not so sure, but they're definitely going to be worth a look if the prices are decent enough. And then Leicester up against Brentford isn't too bad either. So that's game week 1. Let's take a look at the first 5 game week fixtures. Okay, so I thought we'd open with the big 6, right? These teams did all at least finish in the top 6. Whether or not Man United should still be in the conversation, and maybe Arsenal as well, that's up for you to decide. But we need to talk about these teams at some point, so I've lumped them all together. Realistically, especially early on, these are the teams that we're going to be looking at for captaincy. Maybe during double game weeks and blank game weeks, we might go for different teams, especially if they've got maybe a newly promoted team at some point, seeing how they defend early on. But realistically, the main players are going to be the likes of Salah from Liverpool, Haaland from Man City, Kane and Son from Spurs. And they've all got some pretty nice opening fixtures. It is going to be very difficult, depending on how FPL price these players, to fit more than 2 in for your game week 1 side. You shouldn't expect to be able to build your game week 38 team in game week 1. It's just not going to happen. So if we're already ticking Salah off, potentially Fulham away, Palace at home, Man United away, okay, that might be a little bit more difficult this season. But given how Liverpool played against Man United last year, that could just be a great fixture, right? And then they've got Bournemouth at home and Newcastle at home. So a pretty nice opening set of fixtures. Like I said, it's going to be difficult to go without Salah. But then you look at Spurs fixtures. Okay, they've got that Chelsea away game in game week 2, which isn't ideal. But Southampton at home could be a nice fixture for captaincy. They've got Nottingham Forest away, and apparently NFO is how the Premier League are going to do the abbreviation for them. Nottingham Forest away in game week 4 is also a pretty good fixture. But again, you just look at Salah with Bournemouth at home that week. He's the one you're probably going to go for. So Spurs players are going to be decent, but if they're close to the likes of Salah's price, it's going to be hard to kind of maybe justify going for them. Whereas possibly Haaland for Man City matches up a little bit better. So if you didn't want to captain Salah against Crystal Palace at home, you could go for the Man City player against Bournemouth at home that also has Newcastle, Palace and Nottingham Forest to come as well. So I think as long as most people still go for Salah like they usually do, I think the big decision is which one of Haaland, Kane or Son do you match up. I don't want to get into too much detail and discussion about that right now, because prices are going to dictate that. Players could get injured, other players could get brought in, etc, etc. But that's how it's looking like right now. Then you look at the rest. Arsenal got some really nice fixtures to start with. Palace away is not easy, but then it's Leicester, Bournemouth, Fulham straight away for the next 3 fixtures. So I'm going to be looking at like the likes of kind of Saka's price, Martinelli's price. Do they bring anyone else in? They could be an interesting team to look at. Likewise, Chelsea, I expect Mason Mount to go up a little bit. James and Chilwell could increase in price as well. But if they are below the other kind of attack-minded players like Trent, Cancelo, etc., or at least close to Cancelo maybe, then those opening fixtures aren't too bad. The only thing is there's quite a few away games in there. Everton, Leeds and Southampton. And obviously Spurs at home isn't that easy either. So it's all going to depend on how the defenders are priced, of course. But I definitely like the look of Chelsea's opening fixtures, especially from an attacking point of view. And then Man United in there as well. I think their price would have to come down generally quite a bit for us to look at them, because even if, you know, Fernandes comes down to 9 million, I don't think he would come down that low, but let's say he does, he's then up against kind of Saka and Mason Mount, who maybe have slightly better fixtures. Brighton at home's not easy. Brentford defended pretty well at times last year. Liverpool at home is definitely not easy. So the opening 3 are not great for Man United, so I don't think they're going to be on too many people's squads unless their prices come down heavily. Okay, then we got kind of the best of the rest. Now, it's difficult to know what order to put the best fixtures in, because, I mean, Brighton have Man United away and West Ham away, and if Man United can get their act together, that's 2 fairly difficult. Obviously, it's not Liverpool, Chelsea and Man City standard, but difficult enough fixtures in the opening 3. But if you're looking kind of first 5, then they've also got Newcastle, Leeds and Fulham, which are pretty decent. So, again, I think when you look at fixtures right now, especially before the prices have come out, don't completely rule players out, because you don't have to play them every week, especially for teams like Brighton who might have slightly cheaper players, especially in defence. Okay, you might not play them against Man United or West Ham, but if you've got someone like Dunk or someone like that for Newcastle at home, Leeds at home, Fulham away, might not be a bad bench option as well. So don't completely rule them out. They've got some good fixtures, but the opening 3, if you have to play them every week, maybe not ideal. Wolves fixtures look really good. That Spurs away game in the middle isn't great, but Leeds always conceding goals. Fulham, newly promoted. Bournemouth in game week 5, newly promoted as well. We know that Newcastle started to defend a little bit better at the end of last season, but it's still not a completely awful fixture. So if the players are priced right, which I think they will be, bearing in mind they did have quite a few injuries last season. The likes of Neto didn't play a huge amount. Maybe they'll bring in a new striker, new midfielders. We'll have to wait and see. But they could be priced around kind of 6.5 million. They might be nice enablers. And again, you've got to kind of realise that a lot of the players we loved last year because they were cheap are going to go up in price. The likes of Bowen, the likes of Saka, who I've already talked about, they're going to go up in price. We're going to have to look for new enablers. And Wolves could be a nice option. They did start really well last year. They didn't necessarily get the goals, but they were attacking really well in the opening, kind of not maybe first half of the season, but the first kind of 6 to 8 fixtures. It did go a bit downhill towards the end, but who knows? Maybe the break is exactly what they need. Villa, like I said earlier, kick off with Bournemouth away, so they have got that newly promoted side. Everton at home is also a pretty good fixture. Crystal Palace away, not bad. Then it gets a little bit trickier, West Ham and Arsenal. Now, obviously, at the start of the season, we do have transfers, right? So you could put in a player from Villa and then look to move them on to someone else. But if you wanted to hold them longer term, then when it gets to like West Ham and Arsenal, it does get a little bit tougher for them. Brentford, pretty good. I mean, you've got that, again, I've put Everton down as a green fixture for now because I based this not on where the league position was, based on the expected goals conceded, and Everton were one of the worst teams. And I'm not quite convinced that Lampard is going to make them much better this season. But again, once transfers come in, maybe I'll kind of rethink that. But Everton, Fulham and Leicester away, again, who didn't defend well last year, they did have a lot of defender injuries. Not a bad opening set of fixtures for Brentford. I think once you get past Everton's opening fixture, Chelsea at home, we could start looking at possibly their attackers. We'll have to wait and see. There's a lot of speculation about Richarlison leaving. There has been speculation in the past about Calvert-Lewin leaving as well. Obviously, he didn't have a fantastic season last year, but I'm sure there'll be a lot of suitors for him in the Premier League. So let's wait and see what happens there in terms of their attacking options. But Villa away, Nottingham Forest, Brentford away and Leeds away is a pretty nice opening kind of 4 of 5 fixtures. It's just that first game against Chelsea at home that's not ideal. And then Leeds, again, Bamford was injured for most of last season. Let's see if Rafinha leaves or if he doesn't. If they come in at good prices, Bamford could get a little bit of a price drop. I think he was 8 million last year. He could come down to 7.5. Wolves at home, not easy, but not bad either. Then Southampton, Brighton and Everton as part of their first 5, we could definitely be looking at. I think these are the teams where we might need a few enablers, a few of those kind of £6 to £7 million players that we can just put in while we spend, the rest of the money elsewhere. And then we come on to the worst fixtures. Every single newly promoted side, Fulham, Bournemouth and Nottingham Forest, are all in here. I mean, I don't think I would completely rule out the likes of maybe a Mitrovic if the price is right. If he's 7 million, I think it makes it very difficult to go for him because they do have to play Liverpool, Wolves away and Arsenal away in the opening 5, and the other 2 are Brentford at home and Brighton at home. Brighton are never really pushovers either, but if he was kind of 6 or 6.5, I don't expect him to come in at 6 for what it's worth, but if he gets that £6.5 million price tag, and again, we're looking for enablers that are nailed on, that are definitely going to play, in Mitrovic's case, he'd have penalties as well, he wouldn't necessarily be the worst pick, right? Would you really worry if you had to play him against Liverpool at home with Wolves, Brentford and kind of Arsenal and Brighton to come? Probably not, but on paper, the fixtures are not great. For Bournemouth, they're even worse. They've got to play Man City away and Liverpool away in the opening 4 fixtures. And they got Arsenal at home as well, smack bang in the middle of those 2 as well. So I think Bournemouth are going to be a bit of a write-off for me from the start of the season. Ideally, you probably don't want too many players from newly promoted sides anyway. Obviously, they can be good enablers if the price is right. And again, you don't have to play them in every single fixture, but you're not going to want to play them pretty much at all if they're from Bournemouth, just because the fixtures are just that bad. And for Forest, it's a little bit better, but they've got to play Spurs at home, game week 4, Man City away, game week 5, West Ham at home, game week 2. Newcastle and Everton aren't so bad, but they're both away games as well. So again, if the prices are right and they fit into our squads and they're really good enablers, like £4.5 million players, for example, then maybe they'll make it into our squads. But in terms of playing players from the promoted sides, like right now, it does look like Mitrovic might be the only option, and he might get priced out of it as well, just based on how many goals he scored last year. So it's not looking good for them, but obviously there's plenty more time in the season to come, but we might start looking at them a little bit more. Crystal Palace, really bad fixture. They've also got to play Arsenal, Liverpool and Man City in the opening 4, and their other 2 fixtures are Villa at home and Brentford at home. I think Crystal Palace probably surprised the most people last season. They had all those new players, new manager as well. They did really well, but I don't think their prices are going to be good enough for us to warrant bringing them into our squads with those fixtures for sure. Southampton also got to play Chelsea and Spurs. Chelsea at home, Spurs away. They've also got Man United in there as well. Leeds at home ain't bad. Leicester away might not be bad, and who knows, maybe Man United at home will be okay as well. But again, I don't see us picking too many Southampton players. And West Ham are going to be interesting because they've got Man City opening day, which isn't great. They've also got to play Spurs at home game week 5. But if Bowen came in with like a £7.5 million price tag, I do think he's going to be more than that for what it's worth. But if he came in with a £7.5 million price tag, Nottingham Forest away, Brighton at home, Villa away, you might look at it based on what he did last year. So although I've got them on the worst fixtures, again, there's a little bit of context needed. Okay, if you put all 5 together, Man City, Spurs, bookending those fixtures, not great. But if it was for the first 4 fixtures, based on maybe an early wild card or a transfer to someone else, Forest, Brighton and Villa is not awful if the price is right for someone like Bowen. If Antonio gets enough rest over the summer and starts like kicking off well or doing really well at the start of the season, they could be options. So I'm not completely ruling them out, but it doesn't look ideal. Okay, so we better talk about the rest, right? I don't want to talk about 18 teams and miss 2 of them out. So we've got Leicester and Newcastle as well. Arguably, they could have both been in the worst fixtures, maybe even ahead of Fulham, right? Because they're not looking great. Newcastle, really nice opening game of the season against Forest, but then they've got 3 away games in the next 4. Brighton, Wolves and Liverpool away. All not that great really on paper. And Man City at home as well. So yes, Newcastle might improve even more with summer transfers and stuff like that. Callum Wilson might get a nice price, but they are not nice fixtures. So I don't think I'll be looking at too many Newcastle players to start with. And probably the same with Leicester. Now Leicester are one of those teams that I think they did really poor last season. Their attackers weren't great for long periods of the season. Maddison had spells for sure. And to be fair, Maddison actually did really well last season in terms of total output. Vardy did okay when he was fit as well. The defenders were an absolute mare. I'd hope that the defenders have a bit of a reduced price this year. And when they've got everyone fit, they could be options. Now, they do have a lot of players that could rotate, like Castagna, Ricardo, Justin, Thomas as well, all playing in fullback positions. But if the price, again, is right, especially for someone like Castagna, who when he's fit plays a lot of games, they could be options. But again, you'd have to look at it as a bit of a rotation, because realistically, if you're building your game week 1 squad, and you're having to put a defender in that's got to play Arsenal away, Chelsea away, 2 teams you'd expect to score. Man United at home might not be completely easy either. I don't want to beat Man United too much because they were so bad last year, but I don't want to build them up too much either. So I'm kind of not sure about what to make for them. But again, I wouldn't see that as an easy fixture. Could Man United score? sure, getting rid of the clean sheet, yes. They might lose the game, but I can see Man United scoring. So it doesn't look great for Leicester defence. And I think their attackers would have to be pretty cheap to warrant going for them for those fixtures. They're just not looking great at all. So they didn't really fit into the best, didn't necessarily fit into the worst, but I wanted to talk about them anyway. So let me know below what you're thinking. Is Salah essential? I think he's going to be in most people's Game Week 1 squads. I think the key decision will be Haaland versus Kane versus Son, etc. But who knows? Maybe people will go without Salah if his price is too much and they'll opt for 2 or 3 from the other options instead. So let me know your thoughts on the fixtures below. Give it a like if you enjoyed it. Hit that subscribe button. We'll have FPL content all throughout the 2022-23 season. And I'm looking forward to it. Next video will probably be when the price reveals start coming out. And then obviously we'll kick off properly once the game is released. I'll catch you again soon.